Ever notice how folks who grew up in the 70s seem different? Like they're on a totally different wavelength? Well, it's because their whole mindset was shaped in an analog world, way before all this digital noise. So today, we're going to dive into what makes the psychology of that generation so unique. So, why do they seem to think so differently? It's a great question, right? And it's not just some simple generation gap. We're talking about a fundamental difference in how their brains were wired. To really get it, we have to think about what their world was like, or maybe what their world didn't have. First off, no smartphones. Just picture that for a second. No phone in your pocket buzzing every few minutes, no constant connection to, well, everything. It meant your attention wasn't always being yanked in a million different directions. You actually had space to think, to look inward. And of course, no social media. Think about it. No need to curate the perfect online profile, no endless scrolling through feeds. Your life was just your life. You lived it for yourself and the people right there with you, not for some online audience. And that brings us to the big one, a world without instant everything. This is really the core of it. Everything was slower, less immediate. And that one single difference had this massive impact on how their minds were built. Okay, let's dive into exactly how. So here's our plan. We're going to look at how they forged their inner self, how they navigated the social world, the philosophy of life that came out of it, and finally, some lessons we can learn from that slower time. All right, first up, forging the inner self. This is all about how things like freedom, patience, and just the challenges of that time created a really resilient core. So let's talk about independence. This is a huge one. And it wasn't just some idea they were taught. It was baked into their childhood. They had what you could call real-world freedom. Kids were literally told to go outside and not come back till dinner, right? They had to figure things out for themselves. And you can really see the difference here. Back then, kids were just playing outside for hours, unsupervised. Today, it's all about structured activities, constant supervision. And the psychological impact of that 70s freedom, it was massive. You learned to rely on yourself, to solve your own problems. It built a kind of self-confidence that's hard to get any other way. Okay, next up is patience. Their whole world was basically a giant patience training machine. You wanted to watch a movie? You had to wait for it to be on TV. You needed to know something? You had to go to the library and actually look it up in a book. There was no now. This constant waiting taught you that good things take time. It was a masterclass in delayed gratification. And you know what? Life back then wasn't always easy. There were real economic and social challenges going on. And being exposed to that taught you a core lesson. Challenges are just a normal part of life. So the crucial point is, this built resilience. You learned how to bounce back from setbacks because, well, you had to. It was just how the world worked. Okay, let's move on to our next section and see how this all builds. We're talking about navigating the social world. This is all about communication and privacy before the internet changed, well, everything. Think about it. Before texting, before DMs, communication was pretty much all face-to-face. If you had a problem with a friend, you couldn't just fire off an angry text. You had to actually talk to them, in person. And all that direct interaction was like a boot camp for emotional intelligence. Now, what's really interesting here is the kind of skills this built. We're talking about reading body language, hearing the tone of someone's voice, making eye contact. All those subtle things that are so crucial in communication. These weren't skills you learned in school. You just picked them up naturally from talking to people day in and day out. Another big thing is personal privacy. This generation has a really strong, almost instinctual boundary between their private and public lives. And why wouldn't they? Your memories went into a photo album in a closet, not on a social media feed for the world to see and like. This naturally led to valuing a few deep relationships over a ton of shallow online connections. Now, let's contrast that with today. What do we have? Constant stimulation, endless scrolling on our phones, notifications popping up all the time. We are connected 24/7. It's a world of nonstop digital noise, and our brains barely get a chance to breathe. Back then, they had silence. Just silence. There were actually moments of boredom. Times where you had nothing to do but think or daydream or just stare out the window. And what we now know is that this quiet mental space is absolutely crucial. It's where creativity happens, it's where you reflect and connect ideas in totally new ways. So, all of this leads us to our third part, a philosophy of life. We're going to see how all these experiences came together to shape their core values.
And this table illustrates the differences so well. When it came to information, you trusted what you saw with your own eyes, your own experience, not what was trending online. Success? That was something you earned over time, not something you expected overnight. And entertainment? It was simple, real-world stuff, not a constant digital feed.
And this idea about success is so important. It wasn't just an abstract concept, it was fundamental to their worldview. So many of them watched their parents work incredibly hard just to get by. That created this really deep psychological link in their minds between hard work and getting a reward. The idea that you earn success through persistence, that became everything. Okay, so what does this all mean today? Let's get to our final section and pull out some of the big lessons from that slower time. You know, if you ever feel like someone from that generation seems a little disconnected from our digital world, it's probably not because they don't get the tech. It's because they remember a time before the tech. They have a living memory of a world that worked just fine without it. So for them, technology is a tool, something you use. It's not the whole lifestyle. So let's wrap this up with the 1970s blueprint. It all connects, right? You get greater independence from all that freedom, stronger resilience from facing challenges head on, deeper patience because you just had to wait for things, and real-world social skills from, well, actually talking to people. And I think that really brings us to the main point here. The world you grow up in shapes you in these profound ways. And what the 70s generation shows us is that sometimes a slower, simpler life doesn't make you weaker. It can actually create a stronger, more resilient mind. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. In our own crazy, fast-paced world, what have we gained from all this instant connection? And maybe more importantly, what have we lost along the way?